RealAgriculture.com's coverage of the Southwest Ag Conference in Richtown, Ontario was brought to you by C&M Seeds, Pride Seeds, and High Stick NT. Steve, with corn prices being as strong as they are, there's obviously a lot of thinking out there as far as this year, maybe the year where I really have to focus on maximizing yields. Is that really the only thing to focus on this spring?
Well, it's a good question, Sean. I think what growers need to focus on is probably three things. And the first one is we've got some very strong commodity prices, some of the strongest prices we've had in recent memory, or in memory at all, in terms of Chicago and the futures price. So I think the first thing is, how do we lock in some of those pricing opportunities before they go away? So I think growers have to have a very strong marketing plan in place and have some definitive targets that they're going to lock into when those prices come into play, because it never hurts to lock into a profit. Right. I think the one concern growers have is that the price could always go higher. But if you're locking in a profit and you have that opportunity at 10 or 20% above cost, I think that's the first step, is we have to make sure we lock in that part of it. The second part of it, I think, is looking at your inputs then, and how do we maximize the yield for the inputs that we're putting into the crop, and that probably starts with fertilizer. And I would say that growers need to make sure, if they haven't already locked their fertilizer prices in, that they should meet with their retailers to have a plan in place in terms of their fertilizer costs that they can put into their crop budget then, and match that against their commodity price. And the third thing is then your other part of the input equation, which would be and include seed. And so we're getting a lot of questions from our customers this year and saying, how can I maximize yield with the prices that we've got into place? And that's when we're looking at high-yielding hybrids, and high-yielding hybrids that include some of the high-end technologies that we're selling today, which would include a smart stacks, like an 8-way gene combination, which is our Pride G8, a G2, which would include a double stack combination for corn borer. And those help to put an insurance policy really in the crop, because we've got those traits there to help us through if we have any stress factors from insects or from the environment through the growing season. So that's one way to help ensure the yield.
When prices are like the way they are, is this the kind of year where you expect more people to be moving over to the smart stacks?
I would say in areas where we have that technology available by maturity, growers are certainly taking a look at it, because the results that we're seeing in the plots help to demonstrate the benefit that they're giving to the producer. So we are getting a lot more interest than we typically would. Or growers are looking at our highest yielding hybrids and saying, that's what I want to lock into this year. It may not necessarily be a G8, it might be a triple stack, for instance, or a double stack in some maturities. And so growers are really looking at those options this year, probably more so than other years, when the primary concern in a low price environment was trying to minimize their costs.
So in terms of variety selection, did last year teach us anything in Ontario?
I think it sort of re-emphasized that when we have good hybrids, and if they're put into conditions where they can achieve good yields, which means you've got a good growing environment and you've got a good strong fertility base, that they're going to perform. And that you are going to see some difference between genetics, and you start to see a spread in the performance between some varieties and others, based on the growing conditions and their inherent genetic quality that's there.
So as a seed company, are you concerned that, because last year was such a nice season, it was very warm, that people will push the heat unit window in their areas?
That's a concern, I would say, to a degree. We had a very short growing season, so to speak, the year before in 2009, and some guys were caught on their maturities, which resulted in higher drying bills and delayed maturities in that. 2010 was the opposite, so we had a very long, hot growing season, and we were able to actually harvest early. We got to get the crop in the ground early back in the spring. So I think what we try to tell our customers is you need to spread your risk, so we want you to grow multiple hybrids covering a range of maturities, and that puts you in the best position to optimize your yield depending on what the conditions you've got. But
so is that different varieties, different heat unit ranges in the same field, or across different farms?
Well, even across different farms. I think you have to look at what your total acreage is and sort of look at it on a percentage basis. So whether you're going to go 20% early, 60% in the base maturity for your area, and maybe 20% a longer hybrid. Some guys may stretch that 20% to 40%. I mean, it depends on the recipe you want for your farm operation, but it comes back to having a plan in place.
Thanks, Steve.